Hello and welcome to The Gaggle, where we challenge and, if necessary, destroy media narratives. I'm George Szamuely. With me today, of course, is co-founder of The Gaggle, Peter Lavelle, host also of RT's talk show, Cross Door. Well, today is the day when the fate of the world is decided, or at least we're doing our thumbs ups and thumbs down for the week. It's a ritual that many have come to expect and wait with bated breath. All right, I'll go first. It's an issue that we talked about a few times this week, but it really does deserve a big thumbs down, which is the American justice system. What we had today, this week rather, in the Chauvin trial was a joke. It was obviously a travesty as to what happened, leaving aside all of the questions about the culpability of Derek Chauvin in the death of George Floyd. The trial was a joke.
We should say very importantly that anytime a citizen dies in the custody of the police is a tragedy and must be investigated, okay?
Right, and he was investigated and prosecuted. However, the way that this was done, and in particular the way that the trial was conducted, was laughable. The case clearly should have been taken out of Minneapolis, given the fervor and the intensity of the feeling that was in Minneapolis. The jury should have been sequestered during the trial. And when the jurors came back after 10 hours, they clearly indicated that they had not fulfilled their responsibilities. I mean, the way it works is you're supposed to deliberate. And when you come back like that, you didn't have a single question to the judge. You didn't ask for any piece of evidence. You didn't say, about this or that video or anything like that. It means they didn't take their responsibilities seriously. And that's a big problem, because the life of a man is at stake here. And so therefore you have to take it responsibly, because how you vote will determine, this man's fate, who's facing decades behind bars. So you've got to take it seriously. Given the complexity of the case, given all of the disputes among the experts, you had to really discuss it. And they didn't. And now, given the frivolity with which the jurors took their responsibility, the Minneapolis has a problem on its hands, because now there are the 4 other police officers who will be facing trial. So what does Minneapolis do? Are they going to go do it also in Minneapolis, given what they've just seen? I mean, anyone with half a brain, including the judge, would know that the jurors didn't deliberate. They didn't do what they were supposed to do. So are they going to go through the same thing again with the other 4 police officers? That, to say the least, is not fair. Or are they going to move it out of Minneapolis? In which case, of course, then Chauvin's defense attorneys will say, hey, well, if you're doing it for them, why didn't you do it for me? A very good question. So it's a joke. All right, Peter.
Well, you bring up an interesting point that I hadn't thought of, is that because of the way the Chauvin trial was conducted, are they going to learn or change their behavior for the other trials? And if they do, then there's going to be a question why. And then, I mean, you and I are essentially believe an appeal is almost non-existent. However, this may be an impetus to maybe rethink that. My point is kind of dovetails on yours. The George Floyd case is now a template. So anytime there is a race on race, because that's only it, not black on black, okay, white on black, then it's always the George Floyd case. It's always that, okay, which is utterly ridiculous, okay? And it is a travesty of justice. People are trivializing death and they're trivializing life, okay? We have that shooting where a person, from what we could tell, is extremely well trained, knew exactly what to do. There was going to be a tragedy, but a young woman's life was spared. From what we could see, okay, from 2 different angles, the body cam and the neighbor, okay? And no, this is just George Floyd all over again. If you look at the media, the liberal media coverage of it, they leave out almost every single detail.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you can't believe your lying eyes, I guess.
That's right. They leave out all the detail. You look at the video footage, you see the knife. You see the little girl, the girl holding a little dog in her hands. So it wasn't even a knife fight. It's a complete lie that all of the media pundits talking about there was a knife fight. She obviously wasn't. There was no knife fight. This was an attempted stabbing.
We also know that she verbally showed her intention of what she was going to do.
Right.
Okay, it wasn't like she's lifting her arm to scratch her head or something like that with a knife.
Right.
And it wasn't a pen knife. Apparently,
no, it was not. It was a steak knife. It looked very sharp.
And there was and the police were called to that residence.
Exactly.
A request was a demand. Public demand was
somebody threatening a knifing. Exactly. Yeah. No, that's exactly right. I mean, it was an outrageous coverage by the media.
We get one outrage after another, and this continues as everything is about race. And if everything's about race, then nothing is about race. And it's such a disservice to the public. I mean, if you dig into the numbers, anytime the police kill someone accidentally, without cause, there's so many different reasons. Of course, there has to be an investigation. We have to find out what happened, but it's not happening every single day.
Right. Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And what's particularly dishonest about all of this is that they keep talking about George Floyd, but there was nothing, not one scrap of evidence in that trial of Derek Chauvin that had anything to do with race. There was nothing. How did the crisis start? The crisis, a black employee had telephoned the police saying that somebody had tried to palm off a fake $20 bill. So the police came and did what they're supposed to. They confronted this person who was obviously high as a kite and sitting behind the steering wheel. What exactly was the police supposed to do? I mean, they tried to make an arrest. Floyd resisted arrest, and then things escalated and so on. But there was nothing to do with race. I mean, there was nothing there that suggested that white cops were targeting him because he was black.
So, in the case of the police officers saving that young girl's life from another young girl with a knife, what was he supposed to do? Is it racist that he chose which girl that would live? Really? No, I'd call it professionalism. He was trained very well. He reacted spot on, and from the person that was going to be on the receiving end of the aggression, she was saved. He should be commended. It should, and it's an example of good police work. Okay, right. So again, you turn everything upside down, and you're absolutely right. The trial wasn't about race, but in the media, it was only about race. You're up.
That's right. Right. So I guess your turn.
No, but I said I dovetailed yours. I had a media.
Oh, I thought that was okay. In other thumbs down, this is our friend Alexei Navalny, who was said to be dying. He was dying. I mean, the media just ran around, and all the political leaders are saying he's dying. And then yesterday he ended his hunger strike. It was a good thing. Now, the story is that he hasn't been given what he wanted. He said he wants to be treated by his own personal doctors. I don't know any prisoner who gets to have it treated by his own personal doctors. Yeah, I mean, yeah. Does everyone in prison? Yeah, I'd like a Harley Street specialist to come and treat me. But anyway, he was treated.
And a sirloin steak, please, with a little bit of garlic.
That's right. But he was treated by independent specialists, and on his personal doctor's recommendation, he said that suffices for me, and I'm ending my hunger strike. Okay, very good. We don't want him to suffer. But the media spin is somehow that Putin is caved because the West got tough. I mean, it's a joke. Navalny ended his hunger strike. He didn't get what he wanted. He's getting, he's getting thin. But there's no news, incidentally, from these specialists of any particular horrific, terrible disorder that he's suffering from which he was supposed to be dying. So again, a big thumbs down. But the Navalny is dying theme will be with us for at least another 2 years. Every few days, we'll be hearing that he's dying.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, Navalny's arguments are a bit thin, if you know what I mean.
Yes.
Okay. I have another thumbs down. The president of Ukraine, Mr. Zelensky, he got used, okay, and he should have expected it. There's plenty of precedent there, but he's a thumbs down this week. He will continue to be a thumbs down as long as he takes his marching orders from people that can push him along into a war with Russia, which he will not win. So it's at his own peril. I mean, this is just. He's a super spreader of stupidity is what this is here. And I don't say that, in such a vicious way, because I had higher hopes for him when he came to power. So that's on you, Mr. Zelensky. I mean, you painted yourself into a corner with people that will not do a thing for you when it really comes to push to shove. So thumbs down for the Ukrainian president.
Yes, no question. And as we discussed this week, it is shocking that he appears to have learned so little from previous experiences. I mean, he should have known that the West, particularly the United States, has often been gung-ho in the past. You two fight it out among yourselves, but we're right behind you. And it was obvious that this is how it was going to end. You would have thought he, having come in with this huge mandate, great popularity, he has achieved nothing. He has achieved nothing with the breakaway regions, and he has achieved nothing in seeking any rapprochement with Russia. So yeah, I mean, it's absolutely a thumbs down. And if things don't improve for him, very soon, I think he's gone. I mean, it's like the patience is going to run very thin in Ukraine. He's in over his head.
Well, what may happen now, if we look at the coup regime that came to power after Yanukovych was forced out of office, we had a virulent nationalist crowd of people. Now, they tried to pretty it up by putting in someone like Poroshenko that looked more respectable, could speak English, and then he failed with his, and when he ran on very strong, nasty, vile nationalist rhetoric. It didn't resonate with the public. Now, with this happening, the pendulum may go back, okay? And we're going to get someone that's going to be very, very nasty again, which of course, it will create tensions. And you and I both know, and a big fan of The Guns of August, Barbara Tuchman, really good book. It's more for lay people, but it's still a very good book. And one false step and you can have a catastrophe. So yeah, and I mean that's what tells me, or what I worry about is that there's no learning curve here. The Blinkens and people like that, Victoria Nuland, they're just all flatliners. So buckle up and brace for impact.
That's right. And following up on that, the United States, which on one day says we want a summit as soon as possible, and then the next day they impose sanctions, and now yesterday the Russian charge d'affaires was summoned by the State Department. It was given again the Riot Act, again the usual attack. Oh, Russia is destabilizing and doing up to all sorts of nefarious things. So what's amusing about this is Biden talks about, well, we want a stable and predictable relationship with Russia. Who's being unstable? Who's being unpredictable? And it's a joke. And the media just simply repeat this nonsense. Putin's doing this. I mean, we'll obviously talk about that at greater length in the near future. But the whole interpretation of Russia is just so bizarre. I mean, here is the United States, which, from one day to the next doesn't know what the hell it's doing. And it's Russia that's being unstable and unpredictable.
Yeah, and to top it all off here, I know this toxic brew we have to get prepared for it, is that, it's going to be Russia isn't woke enough. That thread's going to continue to be amplified, okay? Right. So they got a lot of tricks up their sleeves here.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Which one, me or you?
I think it's you.
Okay, kind of an extent.
I think it was Zelensky. I think it's me.
Okay, go right ahead. No, it's because we go back and forth. That's why.
Exactly. It's a little confusing. All right. So my next thumbs down is Amy Coney Barrett, who this week apparently signed a contract for a $2 million advance to write a book. The book is said to be about how judges are not supposed to bring their personal opinions into their judgments. Quite why you need to write a book, a whole book.
I need to write a book about it.
I didn't realize the judges ever thought that they were supposed to bring their personal opinions into the case. But nonetheless, it's a $2 million advance, which is a nice chunk of change. A Supreme Court justice is appointed for life. In other words, she can never lose her job. It's just an impossibility. She just basically, you die at the job if you want. She gets paid, I think, something like $250,000 a year. Very, very prestigious job. And yet here she is cashing in.
Security.
Yeah, exactly. So here she is cashing in. Now, this is really quite deplorable because, you're a public official. You're entrusted with a very important tasks. If you have to take seriously the tasks that have been assigned to you. If you want to write books and cash in on your books, then retire and sit at home and write your books. But what she's doing is basically using her name, her stature now, because she's a serving Supreme Court justice, in order to cash in order to make a lot of money. Because if she were to leave the Supreme Court and write a book, no one would read it. So it really is a quite a nauseating spectacle.
We're in the age now where you cash in before you leave. Okay.
Yes.
I mean, usually, and some of the most vile people like Tony Blair, at least he cashed in after he left off.
Yeah. But you cash in almost, you basically you arrange the furniture in your office and you're already cashing in. I mean, she's barely started.
Who knows? It could be volume 1.
I think so. I mean, what's going to be held?
No, hey, let's turn it into a reality TV show, okay?
Right. And what's going to be the theme of her next book? How judges should pay attention to the facts of the case. Well, that's volume 2.
Yes, Your Honor. Okay. I have another thumbs down. It's kind of an extension of the Ukraine saga, and it's clientitis is what I call it, the Czech Republic. Are we supposed to call it Czechia now?
I don't know. I always call it the Czech Republic, but I'm not sure about that. Yeah.
I always thought people said Czechia because they were lazy. But anyway, yes, I could be anyone in the comments if I please.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Correct us because
we're old school. Okay. This whole expulsion of the diplomats 7 years after an event with the same 2 players that were involved in the Skripal affair. I really don't even want to go down that rabbit hole. We did a video on it before. I don't want to repeat myself here, but this is just a case of how a client caves. They needed to corral the team. And so they've been holding this card for a long, long time, and then they play it as if it was very strategically thought out. It looks really dumb. It looks dumb, and it tells you that's what you've got. That's all you've got. Okay, so pretty cheap shot. And what it did was not only did it remind everyone to stay in line, the Czech Republic's own national interests are at stake. There are energy deals with Russia, which was important. The Sputnik V vaccine was in the talks. Apparently, both things could be on hold or even canceled. We don't know yet.
Right.
But that certainly did not serve the national interests of the Czech Republic. And I'm not the type of person to tell what countries should do and what do. They have to identify it themselves. But from an outsider looking in, the biggest loser was the Czech Republic, not Russia.
No, that's absolutely right. And of course, you should mention that the Russians responded by throwing out 20 Czech diplomats, and which means that the Czech Republic's representation in Russia is now pretty much dwindled to almost nothing. And incidentally, the Russian government has just passed a decree saying that countries that deal with us in an unfriendly fashion will not be able to hire Russians in any of their institutions, particularly institutions in Russia. So in other words, if we kick out your diplomats, that doesn't mean that you're going to be able to hire Russians in order to make up for the loss of personnel. So if you've lost your personnel, that's it. You're done. You don't hire Russians.
And when I've seen with my own eyes over the years that they, at the American embassy, particularly in the American citizens section here, they have Russians, because Americans are not smart enough to learn Russian. So, and now those people are dismissed, and now you have these people stumbling along with their broken Russian trying to do their job. Okay, it's really obvious. Okay, it's really obvious.
And one other thing about the Czech Republic, you notice how no one else in Europe has followed suit. I think maybe Slovakia did something in solidarity. At least I read a report that they were thinking of doing it. So if the Czech Republic thought that the rest of Europe would act in the same way that they acted for the UK, they were very quickly disabused of it. You know, the UK is one thing, nuclear power, permanent member of the Security Council, you know, that it carries weight. Czech Republic just doesn't carry the weight. So sorry, you're on your own.
Yeah, and plus, for me, I'm very old school, is that, historically speaking, what we could call the Czech lands have been positively disposed towards Russia.
Right.
And so that's burning a bridge that is unnecessary, because the U.S. and the UK and Ukraine are involved in machinations, this invented crisis here, and then they pull in the Czech Republic as like, we weren't even involved in this here,
right.
And they get pulled in. It shows their very weak position. I warned when I lived in Poland, I said, you will rue the day, because you'll go from the Kremlin to Brussels. Okay, it's happening.
No, that's right. That's it. Yeah. All right. My turn. Linda Thomas Greenfield. I don't know whether too many people know who Linda Thomas Greenfield.
I only found out from her speech.
Exactly. She is the new U.S. permanent representative at the United Nations. She's African American, and she has served in the Bush administration, and she served in the Obama administration. Then after doing her stint with Obama, she went and worked for Madeleine Albright's consultancy, lobbyist. We never really knows what any private equity company, you never know what these gigs are really about, other than people are making a lot of money.
Yeah, I was just going to say, other than counting their money. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so she's now got this nice gig at the UN, and she delivered a speech at Al Sharpton's, Reverend Al Sharpton's Action Network, I think, or whatever it's called, in which she said that white supremacy is inextricably woven in to America's founding documents. Now, that's very interesting, because that goes considerably further than even what Obama said, because Obama would say, yeah, America's a horrible racist place, and it doesn't live up to its founding documents. Now, she's actually gone further and says, oh, it's actually inextricably linked with the founding documents. The Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the Federalist Papers, Declaration of Independence, all of it is sort of white supremacy. So it's very interesting. Now, she represents the United States in the world. And you kind of wonder, what's the rest of the world going to think about, you're saying this about your country? I mean, can you imagine any other country, Japan saying that about itself, Russia saying that about itself? I mean, the Germans, they do their sackcloth and ashes when it comes to Hitler, but they don't say a whole history is based on Nazi evil. They just say that was just this limited period of evil.
And because, this is very important, because they've had a thorough introspection about that period, 1933 to 1945, no one uses it against them.
Right.
Hardly ever. When you meet a Germany, I mean, well, what can you, explain yourself, and where were your grandparents? I don't think that ever really happens anymore. Okay, because they came to terms with it. Now, this American ambassador to the UN, she's just adopted the 1619 nonsense. Okay, and that's everything flows from that. Yeah, I mean, when the next tariff negotiations with the Chinese are going to start out, well, let's start with 1619, okay? And let's go all the way through to the Civil War, to the Civil Rights Act. And what about George Floyd? We're not really happy with that trial there. I think you have a problem with your see. It opens up a can of worms. Okay.
No, that's right. Yeah. She also said, oh, go ahead.
No,
No, I mean, she also said sort of bizarre things. She said that, well, I lived this horrible, institutionalized racism. I was bused to a segregated school. Well, it's very strange. I looked her up in Wikipedia. She was born in 1952. Now, the Brown versus Board of Education Act was in 1954, which desegregated all public schooling. I think Eisenhower sent in the National Guard, I think it was 1958, into Arkansas. So I don't know, but I think people just sort of make up their own personal history, in order to, pile on the horror. Next time, I grew up on the plantation. I was a slave.
Joe Biden came from a slave state, Delaware.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is what happens when wokeism seeps into your policy here. I mean, I was in academia when it started budding, okay, and I just thought, oh my God, this is just people looking for trouble where there isn't any, okay, and trying to solve problems when there aren't any. And now it's seeped in the popular culture. Now it's into high politics, and they will rule the day because they won't be able to make sense of the world because nobody's going to know what they're talking about. Okay. This may seem a bit obscure. You and I talked about it privately. Hannity's interview with Trump, which really, really disappointed me. Since the former president has been barred from social media, and I'm not particularly impressed with 45's newsletters. I thought that the opportunity to have him interviewed by Sean Hannity would have been kind of clearing the air, seeing what's going on. And all we heard about was Sean Hannity's opinions. And I thought that was just a total waste of time.
I agree. I agree with you. And it was unfortunate that all Sean Hannity was doing was espousing his own standard
every night
conservative republicanism, and then basically trying to get Trump to agree to it. So rather than do what you're supposed to do as an interviewer, it's the subject that matters. It's what Trump says that matters, not your views. As you said, every night he regales his audience with the same nonsense about, oh, Biden did this and this in the 1970s. Oh, Biden is decrepit and, cognitively disabled and so on. He does this every night. You've got an interview, focus on your subject. And he didn't do that. And in fact, his kind of interpretation of what Trumpism is about is just standard issue republicanism. I mean, that's Mitt Romney. I mean, so it looks like you haven't even understood what's been going on for the past 5-6 years.
Absolutely right. And I thought that it was an awful interview. I want everyone to be clear. I mean, it's not because I like Trump per se. I just wanted to know what he had to say. I'm just very interested. I mean, he was president for 4 years. Yeah. Thumbs down on Sean. And you know what? Just since we're on the topic here, Laura Ingraham, when you have a very, very well-respected, seasoned, experienced legal mind, shut up and listen.
That's right.
Because it's awful. What is wrong with these people?
That's right. Yeah, exactly.
Some of these legal minds are really interesting to listen to.
Right.
They're crowded out because you want to chime in to show that you're smart, or I went to law school.
Exactly. And when you have a trial, a contentious trial, that's exactly when you want to listen to a trial attorney, an expert on this, somebody who's handled the most controversial. I mean, Alan Dershowitz, who we're talking about, he was in the Simpson trial, and then before that, he was in the Klaus von Bülow trial. So this is a person who really knows the minutiae of legal strategy. So you really want to sit and listen, to his analysis of what was right and what was wrong in this trial. And yet she kind of chimes in because she did 2 years as an associate at Skadden Arps, and then she thinks that she's some great legal mind. I mean, it's ridiculous.
And all the more so is that some of these guests here, they have a position, a perspective that you will never hear because like CNN and MSNBC, they only bring on people that will repeat what their party line. Okay. And on Fox, which I think when it comes to this trial, they showed a lot more skepticism, and they brought on very seasoned people that are not necessarily Republicans or not even conservatives. Okay. So cut through that and just listen, because I'm educated. I'm not a lawyer. You're not a lawyer. Okay.
Exactly.
But I'm fascinated by these things. And it tells me, importantly, that we're not being told the whole story.
Exactly. And this isn't just even a question of the law. I mean, this is a question of legal strategy, which is really interesting, and it's very rarely discussed. As to, what do you do when you really have an unpopular defendant and a difficult case to argue? So you really want to hear from a defense attorney. What do you do in those circumstances?
Missed opportunities.
Missed opportunities. That's absolutely right. So my next thumb down is, of course, as always, the pathetic, useless, spastic, well, actually, I shouldn't use, that's an old-fashioned word that one doesn't use anymore. Useless, worthless GOP, which has really put up no resistance whatsoever to any of Biden's nominees. That just, they've all sailed through with overwhelming majorities, including people in the Justice Department who masterminded the Russiagate hoax. So in other words, these are people who have actually manipulated the instruments of government against the Republican Party, against the Republican Party nominee, and have lied and lied and lied since then. And the Republicans say, oh, that's it, go ahead, all in the spirit of bipartisanship, which always only works one way. And so you really think, well, what is the point of the Republican? Why do we even bother having it? I mean, why not just simply, move out of the way and let the Democrats do whatever they want?
You keep hearing this ridiculous mantra. Well, after 2022 and after 2024, it'll all be different. No, the way they're going right now, the system is going to be fixed. Okay.
Right. Yes. Yeah.
Don't resist later. You better resist now, because by the time it gets to that point, you won't have any powers. Okay. Right. HR 1 passes.
Right.
Well, how is that going to work?
That's right. That's right. And that's right. And now we're getting, the noises, which is kind of an interesting noises, that they're going to pass an amnesty legislation. So, the Democrats have played a quite shrewd hand. They created a crisis at the border by kind of unilaterally revoking all of Trump's policies. So, horrible crisis. And now they turn to the Republicans and say, well, why don't we pass an amnesty legislation, and we'll throw in something to as a sop, well, we're going to deal with the crisis of the border, we'll toughen up our criteria, put in whatever it is, sensors or drones or whatever they promise, and then they'll get enough Republicans over to pass their amnesty legislation. And there are negotiations now afoot to pass amnesty legislation.
Or we're going to spend hundreds of billions of dollars. We just send it to them before they come here. So what you're going to do, you're going to send it to the triangle. You're going to give them cash. You're going to use that cash to pay coyotes to cross the border. I mean, come on, you guys.
That's right. That's exactly it. That's exactly the policy. And that's what Harris is doing. He's like, oh, we'll give you some money. Okay, great. Thanks very much. That'll do nicely. We can pay the coyotes to be shipped to the border. Yeah, that's right. And the Republicans are playing along with this. I mean, it's just, they do this phony stuff. They go on Hannity and they say, oh, we're going to get tough. We're not going to put up with this, like Lindsey Graham. And then Lindsey Graham shows up at this meeting with the Democrats to discuss an amnesty legislation. So
this is what happens, everyone, since Ronald Reagan. Two things that these people are focused on: tax cuts and deregulation. Right. So when you come across these other issues, they're caught completely flat-footed. Right. They call up their donors. How do you feel about this? Oh, cheap labor. Yeah, let them in. Let them in. We love that. Okay. Yep. And it paralyzes them. Okay. Taxes, well, all right, we'll bring it down to 25. Okay. All right, fine. People that have that kind of money don't pay taxes anyway. And they go to a layer lower. They have enough money to pay for a tax lawyer. They don't pay any taxes either. Right. It's all a facade. They always talk about lowering taxes. Right. No, you're not. You're gaslighting everyone. Okay.
And it is kind of hilarious. Yeah, and it's hilarious because it never works for the Republicans. I mean, they passed the one, their signature legislation under Trump, with massive, biggest tax cut ever as Trump boasted, and they got hammered in the 2018 midterms. So, America said, thank you so much for those tax cuts.
Take a look at a poll by Gallup the day the Republicans passed the tax cut. That was the lowest point of Donald Trump's popularity as president.
Right.
And they continue to pat themselves on the back, okay? Yep. It didn't move the needle for the red base, okay? I'm sorry, you can tell them that it did, but it didn't.
Right, exactly. Because for them, it means nothing. Because they're too poor, really, many of them are too poor to pay federal taxes. And for the wealthy, they don't pay taxes. I mean, they know they either basically they move their liabilities offshore, or they get the smartest tax lawyers in the country to figure out ways to avoid paying taxes. So they don't care.
And do stock buybacks. Okay,
right. That's it. Exactly.
Because nobody's going to touch the capital gains. I mean, it's all a rigged system. And the Republican Party are a bunch of buffoons because they go along with it. And a lot of them are monetarily benefit from it. Okay. Right. And they keep talking. Let's talk about Dr. Seuss. I don't want to talk about Dr. Seuss. I want to talk about the economy.
And what's funny about this is that, all the talk, whoa, we're going to recapture the House in 2022 and the Senate in 2022. But let's say they do that. It's not going to make any difference because the Democrats will still be setting the agenda. They had all three branches of government between 2017 and 2019, and the Democrats still set the agenda. I mean, everything that happened in that time, the Democrats were setting the agenda with Mueller, with Russiagate, with all the endless accusations against Trump. It was still the Democrats running things. It doesn't matter, whether you control the House or not.
When the Republicans controlled government for 2 years, from 2016, 2018, what did they do, George? Tax cut.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
And a lot of executive orders, but that is the only signature legislation that was passed. Oh, except for the Defense Department got its.
That's a given. They all signed off on that. Get whatever you want. Just hand it all over.
Yeah. Okay. My singular thumbs up this week. Putin's address to the country. Of course, foreign coverage of it focused on the last, 8 or 9 minutes of it, which I suppose is fine. But the first part of it was very, very interesting, and it showed me what government can do. And what and not what we'll achieve this by 2035, no, this is what's going to be done this year and next year, okay? And the vast majority of it has to do with families, okay? New families, new children. There's a cash payment for kids going to summer camp. They get a cash back. Russians actually use the term now. It's a Russian term, cash back. Okay, a lot of mechanisms to make it easier for families, and it focused on schools, on education, on recreation, on cultural projects, and not just, over the next 10 years. No, over this fiscal year, the next fiscal year. It's very, very concrete. I read one of the brokerage houses came out with a very interesting breakdown of it. It was very, very impressive. They've got the money to do it as well. So, as the Western media focuses in on truth movements in Russia, in its own country, the government is focused on helping average people.
Well, I think so, and I think it's first of all, I think it's a very important way of addressing demographic problems, which is, Russia did have a very serious, has had a demographic issue for quite a while, but it became very acute in the 1990s, year after year, very seriously declining population. So yeah, this is exactly what you have to do. I mean, it's now, so unlike the foolish policies in Western Europe when Merkel decided, hey, Germany's population is too low, so let's bring in immigrants, an absolutely catastrophic decision. So this is, it makes a lot of sense to, address the demographic problems in this way. But the other thing is that what people don't realize about Putin is that he is primarily concerned with domestic affairs. I mean, people always think, oh, he's so obsessed with, recreating the Soviet Empire and all this nonsense and challenging the West. He isn't. He never was. His agenda was always to address domestic problems and to ensure that Russia punches its weight, because it is true, Russia should be a bigger and a more serious economic power in the world than it is. And I think that he wants to do that. Why can't Russia, with all its natural resources, its population, carry the economic clout of a country like Germany? So, that's been his concern ever since he came to power in 2000. And so it's, and to understand Putin, you have to understand that.
Yeah, and another thing is that if I think it's on I think RT has it, or it's on Ripley for sure, our news agency. But I mean, I really liked the speech, its presentation, because they had very large screens on both sides of him, and it showed investments in the regions, which of course is a really, really important priority. This is the biggest country in the world. It has vast natural resources, and in the east, there's very sparse population, and now they need to grow that population, expand, because all of the riches of the world that you need are there. And a lot of people don't understand there's this focus on if you're in the nuclear club or all that. You know what club you need to be in? You need to be in the hydro club, and you need to be in the food club, okay? Two things that Russia can excel at and is excelling at. I mean, it's been talked about in muffled voices, but the possibility of conflict over water, and it happens in specific regions in the world, it's going to grow in concern. Okay, and so they're looking at those kind of things, looking at the future. As I always tell people, two things: modernization and sovereignization. Okay, those are the two priorities that Putin's had for 20 years.
Right. No, that's exactly right. And I think that's why his priority was not to take on the West, but partnership with the West, particularly with Germany. I mean, he wanted German investment, German know-how to help, Russia develop its economy, to make Russia into a major economic power. And so that, for him, conflict with the West that's the last thing he wants. I mean, all along he's wanted good relations with the West precisely because he wants to focus on domestic problems.
Right, absolutely right.
Thumbs down is Barack Obama, as always. When you think of this person who was a former president,
try not to, George.
You try not to, and he served 2 terms, elected twice comfortably, showered with honors, showered with vast sums of money. He waltzed into the best schools, and yet he sends out these incendiary tweets, these incendiary statements about American racism and the racist justice system, which he never bothers to explain. Because to challenge any of the statistical findings or anything else, the whole notion that there's a serious problem of white on black crime, it's a fiction. I mean, to the extent that there is a crime problem, the most serious crime problem is obviously black on black crime, then black on white crime, way down on the bottom is white on black crime. And yet he pretends that this is the most serious issue facing America. I assume he knows better, but the fact that the former president plays this reckless, incendiary game, not to mention when you go back to Afghanistan and when he started accusing the incumbent president of treason, that he wasn't defending American interests because Putin had some sort of a hold on him, when it was just a matter of the intelligence that Trump received was obviously, he knew that this was rubbish. And the fact that Obama does this, you really feel, what the hell was America doing in electing this person in the first place?
And he would have never been president of the United States, elected twice, if white people hadn't voted for him. So what is he talking about?
Absolutely.
I mean, for me, that's just the simplest argument. And the second one, if racism is so systemic and so rampant, why do so many brown people want to move illegally into the country? Can someone explain that to me? Or can someone explain to me why Asians make 20% more than whites do? And can you explain to me why the Biden administration has pulled all of these lawsuits that demonstrate discrimination against Asians in the elite schools, which it's there, okay? I mean, they hate merit, okay? It's not about white people. It's about merit, okay? You have to have equity. Dumb everything down, dumb it down in the most competitive global environment of all time. It's just astounding.
Right. No, that's right. But no one ever challenges Obama on this. So Obama can just simply tweet these things out, poison the well. Because remember, when it goes, when Obama says something, it all seeps down to people on the street. They don't know very much. Hey, all they hear is, hey, there's whites basically go out killing blacks. Cops, go to work every day and thinking in terms of how many blacks can I kill today. That's what people learn on the street, and that is a very dangerous stuff. And that's why really it is disgraceful that a former president should play this reckless, dangerous game.
The fact of the matter is, it's liberals and their pliant stooges in the media wake up every single morning figuring out a way to poison the well. That's what they do. Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay. I have another thumbs down. George, the contractors will stay in Afghanistan. Okay. Okay. We knew it. Okay. So they're just going to turn it into a mercenary endeavor here. So the grift continues. They'll have it all, the flags and everything, but we're not leaving. We're never going to leave. And I told you, George, if we're not out by May 1, we will never leave. I'm sticking with that.
No, I don't think so at all. Because that once America's not out, the Taliban has no incentive to adhere to an agreement that America is violating. I mean, America signed an agreement. You can't just simply turn around and say, well, we're not going to stick to the agreement. Well, if you're not going to stick to the agreement, we're not going to stick to the agreement. So, they will go back to targeting Americans. And it's going to be hard for Biden to turn around. Oh, well, that was Putin. I mean, it wasn't really it was Putin who's targeting Americans. No, you can't play that game again. But yeah, absolutely. I don't think at all that.
Yeah, well, I mean, Biden is going to say, well, they're not wearing green uniforms. These guys are wearing black uniforms. Okay, they don't work for the U.S. government. Okay, they work for private companies that the government pays lavishly. I don't know the numbers, George, but I mean, at least during the height of the Iraq War, they were sending reservists over to Iraq.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is a very nice boondoggle because again, back in Yugoslavia, you had these former military people who were helping Croatian army, and of course the Croatian, when they launched their Operation Storm in 1995 to drive the Serbs out of Croatia, that was all organized by the American military, but America had plausible deniability. Hey, these are private contractors, nothing to do with us. We don't know. Yeah, these are all generals, who, 10 minutes ago were working for the U.S. government and now are happily working, essentially training, fighting, whatever it is in Croatia. So America's been playing this little game for quite a while. But yeah, it's an absolute disgrace.
One big grift. That's what it is. That's what it's about. It's not about national security. It's not about women's rights in Afghanistan. I mean, they're really pulling at threads here. It's all about money. That's what it's all about. Okay.
Well, speaking of that, and that segues to another thumbs down. George W. Bush, who has made a comeback, this week. He raised this very issue of not happy about this withdrawal from Afghanistan. What about women's rights? And then he did his usual spiel of attacking Republicans for being racist, xenophobic, nativist, and isolationist, and all this thing. It's a kind of a ritual that all former failed Republican leaders do John Boehner, I think, did it last week. You tell them, my God, the Republican Party today, it's just so horrible. No room for somebody like me, a moderate, decent, good guy like me. No one there. So you would have thought George W. would shut up. I mean, that would be the main requirement for George W. Bush. But no, he's painting immigrants because he just loves immigrants. So he's just painting them. We mustn't be afraid of immigrants. So he's showing he's got a book out of paintings of immigrants. It really is just quite nauseating. And then you get Boehner, who attacks the very party that made him Speaker of the House, made him famous. Okay, but these people are truly ghastly, these Republicans.
Well, I mean, on top of it, I mean, George W. Bush he made a number of, I guess, the morning show interviews and stuff like that, and they were all on like CNN and MSNBC. They were all softball questions and no follow-ups, or I'm really worried about withdrawing troops from Afghanistan. Well, I mean, what was your thinking? I mean, did you want to stay there, Mr. President, forever? I thought that was just to go and solve it was basically should have been a police action
operation, exactly.
and destroy the safe haven and get the hell out of there.
Exactly.
Explain your logic on wanting to stay there, or maybe we should talk to Dick Cheney about that.
That's right. And exactly, you didn't tell the American public that this was going to be a 20-year occupation. Exactly. You said this is a policing operation to go after Al-Qaeda. And it just went on, and now you're talking about women. That's not what you said to the American people. But this is the way these lies always get spun. You have to then start justifying this military occupation, and you bring up all this nonsense. Well, it's about global warming. That's what we're really concerned about. We say global warming, or women's rights. Oh, you just pick whatever. We have to stop genocide in country X.
Are you still looking for those weapons of mass destruction?
Right. You would think somebody like him would just vanish and into thin air so that everyone would forget about him. But no, there he is. He's just popping up.
Well, of course. I mean, what the left likes to do is that they like to take whatever form of conservatism, and it's corporatism. It's not conservatism at all. They do the switch and bait here, and it's basically to denigrate Trump's base. Okay, right. That's what they want to do. He's a useful idiot. That's what he is.
Right.
Okay? Right. Because if he wouldn't say those things, they wouldn't have him on.
Right. That's right. Who's done? I think it was my thought because I had George W.
And I'm done. I ran out.
Do I have anything else? Yeah, I have one other thumbs down. Now that's this big environmental global warming powwow.
I was thinking about it. I forgot to write it down.
I mean, it is such utter nonsensical assertions, and particularly from the American side, which is completely hysterical. We'll hold that the whole planet will be going into hell in a handbasket anytime now, and we've been hearing this for years and years, and yet things just go on pretty much as they've always
gone. The 70s, George.
Exactly, since the 70s. Yeah, some summers are hotter than others, some are cooler than others, some winters are hotter than others, some are cooler than others. It just goes on pretty much the same as before. I mean, the planet Earth, it's been around for about 4 billion years. It's a pretty sturdy thing. I mean, it's survived an awful lot during those 4 billion years. So it's not just going to vanish, like in the next 12 years or whatever it was that AOC declared. And the funny thing was that John Kerry, who is the environmental czar of the US, said in some interviews this week, they said that, well, even if the United States goes down to 0 carbon emissions, and even if China also goes down to 0 carbon emissions, we still haven't solved the problem. We've got to suck the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. I have no idea what sucking the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. It sounds pretty nasty because we kind of need the carbon dioxide. Plants live off carbon dioxide. But it's a little like Bill Gates's idea of putting some kind of a cloud, a dark cloud above the sun in order to cool the planet. That sounds like a really good idea, and really doable. Let's put something in front of the sun. So that what these people are suggesting, that there is no way you can have any one number of these environmental powwows. And even so, they're going to want more and more and more draconian steps, ill thought out, done by people who have no expertise in any of these matters. So, you thought that these lockdowns were bad and made no sense and didn't do anything to address the virus. Boy, is this going to be a disaster.
Well, also, I mean, I watched part of it, and Biden with his mask, he looked very silly. Yes. He's sitting alone in a room. Okay. Yes. Is it one of the things I found really annoying is that they like to do in 2040 and 2024, 2045, 2060, and all. Not only are you all not going to be in power, you're probably all going to be dead. Okay,
I'm sure that's right. Exactly.
I mean, I just could. And then they have the little Mexican activist, and what that Swedish girl, whatever her name.
Greta Thunberg, I think. Yeah.
Just nauseating.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And what that does is what they're doing is that they're elevating, they're using these young people as props, as emotion, genuflecting to emotional possible distress, scaremongering, all of this here. I found it to be a complete waste of time. And it really, I mean, what was the whole point of it? It was to show Biden is a global leader. Yeah, him sitting there in a little corner. It looked like Hollywood Squares. Remember that? I don't want to date ourselves so much, but it looked very, very silly, unserious. Right. And Blinken was playing lunchroom monitor. He looked awful with his 1990s Hillary Clinton haircut.
Yeah, and this whole hysteria, this it's existential crisis, because at best you can say, all right, it's a problem, but it's a manageable problem. It's not the world isn't going to come to an end. Okay, maybe there's a problem about global warming, but it's manageable. It's not going to need these insane, drastic steps like sucking the carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere or putting a screen in front of the sun.
I want everyone to understand watching this. George and I are not against the environment. I love the environment. And one of the things that when George and I were growing up, there was a very powerful propaganda program in public schools. It's anti-litter, okay? And to this day, I have a visceral response to people littering, okay? I believe in planting trees. I like Earth Day. I just don't, my issue is that we've been collecting solid information on the weather, on the environment for, I'll be generous, 200 years, okay? That's not very much time. No. And, I can remember the first catastrophe books that came out. I'll date myself again. When I was growing up in the grocery store, before you go to the checkout stand, they had the paperback books, okay? And they would have, the chariots of the gods and, all this catastrophe stuff was, what was it? They had all of the UFO stuff. Remember that? Chariots of the Gods. That was a very popular book, I remember. And so we had all of the climate catastrophe fed to us in the late 1970s. And it's never ended. And none of their models, not one of those models has ever come true.
Right, exactly.
It doesn't mean we dismiss the climate and the environment. I don't. I just would like to hear serious people not trying to make money off of it.
Right, exactly. And if you think of all of the predictions of doom, not so long ago, you remember we had overpopulation. Then we had
Club of Rome. Remember
Club of Rome, exactly. All of the natural resources in the world, we're going to run out. We're just going to run out of the natural resources. Where we know there's an energy glut. I mean, there's so much of it. We have difficulties maintaining the prices of energy. So all of these things are just an absurd projection. So in the same way that these projections, well, the world's just going to keep rising and rising and rising, the temperature. But again, there's no evidence that it is continuing to rise. I mean, as far as one can tell, the only evidence is there's been a slight rise in temperature during the past 100 years. Well, that sort of happened. No indication that it's continuing to rise, but there has been a rise over the past 100 years. So to the extent that it's a problem, it's easy to address. It doesn't require, and I think Putin's address and some of the other leaders, they said, yeah, okay, it's a problem. This is what we're doing to address it. I mean, don't give us hysteria.
The Australian Prime Minister, I thought he gave a very good presentation. This is what Australia is doing. This is what we're doing for our country, and this is our bit. I thought it was, a very basic acknowledging there's an issue and how they're dealing with it here. But I mean, having this, this is all part of the Great Reset that they want to do. They want to use the environment for huge transfers of wealth and their equity and all of this. I'm very wary of very big ideas, okay? Because I've been around for a while. These big ideas, they're awe-inspiring sometimes, and they make you usually feel pretty good, but they're not thought out. And there's the law of unintended consequences kick in, and until we come up with a better idea than sovereignty, I'm gonna keep my cards close to the chest.
I think it's a very good point. I mean, it's like you have to say that any idiot can come up with a big idea and then completely make an absolute hash of everything. I mean, so what happened in the Soviet Union was to a certain extent, in China under Mao. You have a big idea. Here's how we're going to solve all of mankind's problems. Yeah,
all
exactly.
Problems solved simultaneously.
That's it. And then, I mean, does anyone really think that when you start sucking out the carbon dioxide, anyone really think that this is going to end well? we're going to be doing well. I mean, boy, it is disaster beckoning. Or if you put something in front of the sun, that's going to end well. I mean, there's an absolute lunacy. But in the case of Gates, because he has so much money, he gets any platform he wants to spread this nonsense, and and he also took part in this conference.
Does a private individual have a right to block the sun? I don't understand the.
No, I don't understand that either.
Standing to block the sun. It's a mystery to me.
It is a kind of a mystery. I don't think anyone's going to really take well to that. Just blocking the sun. I don't see that as a popular idea, to be honest.
Well, do we have an example of blocking the sun that works? Just asking. I mean, I don't know if anyone's been watching Snowpiercer, but they tried to block the sun to cool the planet down, and then they froze the planet. Just saying.
Yeah, I think so. So, anything else?
Done. I had too many thumbs down.
Yeah, no, it's all thumbs down. I guess one quick thumbs up right at the very end. Right now, there's taking place a forensic audit of Maricopa County, of the election, November the 3rd election in Maricopa County in Arizona. And a forensic audit means that they go through methodically all of the votes. So it's going to take a while. I think they've got a 40-day time limit to do it. So they're going to see, whether, this person was indeed this person, this address was the right address, how many people actually lived at the address. So this will be, it's quite an achievement on the part of the Arizona legislators that they've got this. So the Democrats have tried to prevent this forensic audit, but it looks like it's going on. I mean, even yesterday, the Democrats were trying to seek legal action to prevent this audit. So they may still try new tricks next week, going to federal court and so on to try to prevent this. But it's, you have to say thumbs up for the Arizona legislators that they've got this far, that they're about to undertake this forensic audit. So
it kind of reminds me, I think it was with the Iowa caucuses when it was for the Democrats, and in one of the caucuses it was like a tie or something like that, and they had to flip a coin. And this
flip a coin. I remember that. Yeah. Flip a coin.
That's the Democrats. Okay, they'll do anything for power, anything. Okay,
right. Yes.
Eating, they have no problem with it all.
Right, that's right.
All righty, on that note.
Yeah, I think that's it. All right, then. Those were our thumbs ups and thumbs downs for the week. So, people can breathe a sigh of relief that they weren't named. So we'll be back next week. We're on Rumble. Please look us up on Rumble. And remember, if you like the gaggle, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon. Bye.